Welcome back, Clocks on the Stove, episode 101. Finally, triple digits. Crazy. Go check out episode 100. Spent a lot of work and a lot of preparation getting that one done. We got with you today college football week 2 for anything that you missed in college football week 1. Oh, no, excuse me. We have with you college football week 3. Anything you missed in college football week 2, go check out our TikTok. Zach gave a whole 1 minute breakdown on everything you should have seen. Your usual host, myself, Grayson Fisher, with me, the one and only Zachary Watts.
Yeah.
Let's dive on. We're in that weird state of like dog shit games until October hits. So there's not any. I'm gonna be honest. There's not a single game we're gonna go over today that is like hold your horses. But nonetheless, it's college football, and I'll take shitty college football over no college football any day of the week.
Yes.
Our first game at noon on ESPN, we have the number 14 LSU Tigers going to Mississippi State. LSU coming in at a minus 9.5. I think this is actually a very fun game. I see it going two ways. I see LSU going in there. Before I even go into this, we need to remember Mississippi State is not an easy place to win at. They got the freaking cowbell going on. They're playing big this year because of Mike Leach. It's not an easy environment to do well in, and we've also seen Mississippi State have previous success against greater LSU teams. I think this game goes two ways. I think LSU goes in there and beats the brakes off of them, and they prove like just because we lost to Florida State doesn't mean we need to be getting all this slander. Because I'm gonna be honest, I've been seeing a lot of LSU slander on my social media feeds. Or I think it's a trap game. Mississippi State pulls it out. I could so see it. I'm gonna get names correct before I go into it. Will Rogers is having himself a season. He's 33 for 40, 46, 389 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, they're a good team. They're playing with the why, and we already talked about this. When you have a purpose for something that you're doing, it makes you believe in it, and it makes you low key achieve things that you shouldn't have achieved. Do I think this is a bad Mississippi State team? No. Do I think it's one of the better ones we've seen in the previous years? No. I just think I could see it being a trap game. Overall, though, I'm going to take LSU. I'm just going to take a money line. I don't know if they're going to win by 10. I'm just going to go with LSU money line. Also, the over-under is 54.5. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at this game, I think LSU definitely has like a prove it type of scenario for themselves. With their loss in week 1 to FSU, a lot of people were stuck on the fence between is FSU like criminally underrated or was LSU just that overhyped coming into the season? And honestly, I don't think it was either really. I mean, I am leaning more towards the side of I just don't think people gave FSU the respect with the transfers that they got and how much they've improved maturity wise. But for LSU side of things, Jaden Daniels is still the guy. I don't see any reason that would point to anything else. I saw a lot of people calling for him to be benched for the backup. I don't think the backup can play any better, in my opinion. I don't know why people think that switching a quarterback that's proved himself would somehow fix your scenario in that sense. But for Mississippi State, this is a big game for them because, they were fortunate enough to get a win over Arizona, but they needed 5 turnovers to win in overtime against Arizona. And no disrespect to Arizona, but if you look at Mississippi State's next couple games, they face LSU this week. They go to South Carolina, and then they play Alabama at home. So their schedule doesn't get any easier from there, and it's not really doing them any favors. So this is kind of the best case scenario where they can play a better team in the SEC. They play some top line competition, and they kind of see where they fit in the scheme of things within the SEC. Unfortunately, I do think SEC is going to take it to them. I don't think Mississippi State's offense can technically go blow for blow. If this was a heavyweight boxing match, LSU's probably closer to Tyson Fury than Mississippi State is. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off your Jaden Daniels thing. Jaden Daniels wasn't the reason they lost to Florida State. If anything, he's the reason they stayed alive in that game. He's very good. He's 40 for 61, 615 yards with 6 touchdowns and 1 pick. Pretty not bad at football, Zach. The other thing, too, is I like what you said with the heavyweights, and I kind of agree with you. It's going to get the way I see this game is LSU, and it's going to be a close first part of the game. I don't know, first quarter, first half, where it's going to be like 14-14. And then as LSU keep scoring, Will Rogers is going to have to do what I call too much in order to keep them alive, and that's where mistakes come, and that's where turnovers come, and that's where sloppy play comes. I just think weapons for weapons, and even in no disrespect, coaching level, the coach from Mississippi State this is his first time ever being a head coach. He was defense coordinator that got promoted due to the fact that Mike Leach passed away. Rest in peace to a fucking legend. But that's the only reason why. I just think that LSU is gonna go out there and get the job done.
Yeah, the last thing I'll really say about this game is, Florida State showed LSU respect to their front seven by coming out the gates with a pass heavy attack. And that wasn't because they wanted to catch them off guard or kind of surprise them. They knew what LSU had with their front seven. They're all conference linebackers, escaping my brain right now, but he's a weapon in the middle of the field. And he can work sideline to sideline. His name will come to me later, but I just don't think Mississippi State is going to be able to rely on their run game enough to slow the game down. Now, look, I know the pace of play has really changed within college football with the new rules, and I know advertising has become a big issue, but teams aren't getting as many offensive drives, but when you're going up against a team like LSU, they can rely on the big plays.
Omar Speeds?
No, I'm thinking of the other linebacker. What's his name?
Greg Penn.
No. Maybe it is Spates.
Oh, Perkins?
Perkins,
yeah.
Yeah, Perkins is a stud.
Harold Perkins, he's a sophomore, number 4.
Yeah, but the only way you're going to be able to slow LSU down is if you're able to manage the game clock when the ball's in your possession. But the problem is you're not going to be able to do that by running the ball against this front seven. Your O-line is not better than LSU's. I'm sorry. This isn't like some surprise to you, and it shouldn't catch you off guard. They're going to put pressure on you and all phases of the game, and you just got to find a way to stick through it. Like, you got to roll with the punches. You got to find a way to fight back. But ultimately, I do see LSU winning by a couple of scores. They'll probably end up covering. But, like you said earlier, this is one of those weeks in college football where we're not yet into our conference schedule, and teams want to kind of bolster up on their win totals earlier in the year. So that way, come into the season, they kind of look upon their record more favorably. And hopefully that the teams they lose to now or beat now will end up playing better down the road. Unfortunately for Mississippi State, you have a juggernaut fairly early, but you got away with 2 games earlier. I think between it wasn't Monmouth. It was it
was somebody.
It was some weird team, if I'm not mistaken. Southeastern Louisiana. Yeah. Great tune-up game. Then you played Arizona. Had your defense bail you out with 5 turnovers, which I doubt you're going to replicate in this game, but I digress.
Yeah, our next game is another SEC matchup. Actually, I think 3 of our games are SEC matchups. We have the University of South Carolina going to Athens, Georgia to play against the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia Bulldogs, the number 1 team in the country. The over-under is 54.5, and Georgia comes in at a minus 27.5 favorites. Wow. I don't have too many things to say. My first thing is this is not the same Georgia team we've seen in the past 2 seasons. Thus far. We're in week 3. I hate the short mindset of college football fans. Thus far, going into week 3, I have not seen the same output on offense and dog of defense that we have from the previous 2 national championship Georgia teams. Not really sold on Carson Beck. I don't think he's that legit either, but I think the weapons around him are so good that it doesn't really matter. Spencer Rattler's doing better with the turnovers, which is good, good for him. I don't think he's thrown any picks so far this year with 3 touchdowns. He does still make some of the dumbest mistakes I've ever seen. But in their loss to UNC, which was not a good loss, he actually wasn't the reason they lost that game. He played pretty decent. What's going to kill South Carolina in this game is their O-line is dog shit.
Yeah.
Dog. They made UNC's front 7 look like last year's Georgia defense.
Yeah.
Even if they keep up for a quarter, they cannot keep up with this Georgia defense for 4 quarters. Spencer Rattler's going to have to be running for his life. Shout out Xavier Legette, though.
Legette Miles.
That boy's eating this season, dude. 15 receptions, 296 yards, and a tutty. Shout out Legette. I think he won receiver of the year receiver of the week last week. But with this Georgia team, they have so many weapons. South Carolina's defense isn't bad. I just don't think they have man for man, mano a mano, the line that Georgia does. They're going to get no pressure on Beck. And when in doubt, you just give it to Brock Bowers, you know? Um, I I don't know if I can take Georgia minus 27.5. I'm going to just stick with Georgia money line because that's a lot of points. But I do think Georgia goes out there and manhandles them. I could honestly see it being like a 30-0 game. And it's at Georgia at 3:30 on CBS. Forgot to mention that. I don't see, I can't even come up with a hypothetical to how South Carolina could win this game because their O line is just atrocious.
Yeah, I gotta admit, look, Spencer Rattler's played out of his mind so far this season. He's completing passes at an 83% rate, which is just ungodly. That's some NCAA numbers that you would see from a video game. But the problem is that's really hard to replicate against a two-time defending national championship team that hasn't lost in over almost 3 years now. I think another issue we have that you brought up is Spencer Rattler got sacked 9 times against UNC. 9 times, which just is unacceptable. There's no way you can win a football game like that. They say if your quarterback is getting pressured like over 35% of the time, that's a problem. If he's getting pressured over 45% of the time, that's non-viable. That means you're not able to really rely on your quarterback to win you a game. But if he's getting pressured like at a 70-80% clip, you have no chance.
Yeah, this ain't 7-on-7, brother.
Yeah, this is not something where you can just be like, oh, we can get a big player or two here, because Georgia is going to get the big player or two here, and you're going to have to find a way to work around that. What I will say that kind of helps South Carolina in their favor is Georgia's safety. Ballard is not able to go. He's one of the top players on that team. He did suffer an ankle injury last week, so he's not able to go in this game. So that will help kind of take or alleviate some pressure over the top. The problem is, are they going to give Spencer Rattler enough time to take deep shots? And I just simply don't think so. If you're game planning for deep shots throughout the game, I just think that's a terrible idea. You got to kind of set them up and kind of catch them off guard. And I just don't see that happening.
I don't see the O line giving him enough time to throw a deep ball.
Dude, I don't see him giving him enough time to snap the ball.
Like UNC was living in the backfield, and their front seven is not Georgia.
Yeah, as much as I hate to watch it, you may have to adapt to some form of Willie Taggart, just screen and run for your life.
Handoff, throw, side, run.
Yeah, like if you were running like an RPO system, you would just die. Like you'd be like, and there's a D end to my face. Like that's kind of how it'd be. But I don't want to say this is gonna be Spencer Rattler's like come to earth moment, because I mean, look, it's just not physically possible to keep up with 83% completion percentage throughout a year. It's just not possible. I'm sorry. And, that's not to discredit him in any way, but, he's made the right reads up till now. But Kirby Smart is a great coach, and he's going to throw schemes at you that you haven't seen before. And unlike other teams where, you can work through your progressions, if your first read isn't there, you probably already have a defensive end breathing down your neck. So, I am leaning toward Georgia covering this. However, I wouldn't throw any money on it. It's just too big of a spread to even think about. But we may be looking at a shutout for South Carolina, unfortunately, unless Leggett Mouse somebody.
Yeah, their only chance to win this game is Leggett Mouse.
Yeah, that is the only way I even see this going down, and I don't see that happening at all. It's just not possible.
Our next game is another 3:30 game. This one is on ESPN. Oh, somebody just sent me a weird text message. Anyways, sorry, back to retrain thought. ESPN 3:30. This is a very interesting matchup because it's two teams I've never thought would have played each other. We have the Minnesota Golden Gophers going across the country, not really kind of halfway, to go to UNC, play the number 20 Tar Heels. UNC coming in at a -7.5 favorite, over under is set at 51. I'm gonna be honest. I do think UNC wins this game. I think the margin of victory is much, much smaller than we think. We look at what UNC struggles with, right? And it's that they can get bullied in the trenches. App State didn't. They have holes in their game where I think a Big Ten team might be a little too much for them. I think they're going to go out there and try to speedster their way through things. And it's going to cause for some. I mean, Drake May, he throws dots, but he also throws shit passes too. So I think that this Minnesota defense is very good. They can't score worth a shit on offense, though, which is where I think they're going to struggle because this UNC defense is actually, I wouldn't say legit, but they're better than they've been the last 2 years under Mac Brown. I do think, though, PJ Fleck's going to come out with some sort of game plan. I see it being a super low scoring first half, and then UNC starts maybe getting their rhythm in the second half. But I do think stylistically, this is not a good matchup for UNC.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the most surprising things this season that a lot of people didn't expect was UNC's rushing attack. I think they're ninth ranked nationally in their ground game. I think they're averaging like 245 rushing yards per game, which is a surprising thing to see. And, that's not to say that Drake May has regressed, even though he kind of hasn't lived up to the same hype he did last year. He threw 38 touchdowns last year, and so far this year he has 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. I think another thing to look at is, we did bring up that UNC got 9 sacks in their first game against South Carolina. They had no sacks last game. But I think most of that kind of comes down to their coverage being a little lackluster. Their defensive coordinator came out and said that we had little holes in our coverage, which allowed their quarterback to get the ball out fast and where he needed to, which was bad on our part, but they were still able to get wins. I think another big part in this game, which is really going to kill Minnesota, is when you don't have an offense that can sustain drives and keep your defense off the field. You really need to count on your defense to kind of stop the other team when they need to. Problem is, UNC is one of the best teams in the country when it comes to converting on third downs. They're converting at like a 61% rate on third downs right now. They're really taking it to teams. They're really able to keep themselves on the field. And I think a big part of that is because they're so balanced in their game plan. The fact that they can rely on such a resilient ground game and yet still have a top level athlete in Drake May, who, despite not playing his best, he's still able to win games. And he's able to say, hey, I'm able to rely on the guys around me. I don't need the spotlight, which is a huge quality to have in a quarterback, especially as talented as he is. So I really like to see that out of UNC. I'd like to see them fix up some things. I really think this is an opportunity to improve on where you kind of slipped up last week because, hey, you nearly got upset by App State, but App State isn't a bad team at all. They're constantly going to be on upset alert against any top team they play. They're quality coaching, quality players throughout. But for UNC to be one of the better teams in the ACC, you've got to put the weaker teams away. Like, you've really got to set yourself apart. And this has to be one of those weeks where that happens. I'd like to see Drake May get a little more action in this one. It's not to say he hasn't gotten the opportunity, but bring out the play action, allow Drake May to really set himself apart and kind of let him win you games. I know he's never going to be the guy to be like, oh, I want to be the one to win games. Let's win as a team effort, but put the ball in his hands. He's going to do great things. He's a great quarterback prospect, and I like what I see out of him. I just wish they'd rely on him a little bit more than they are. With that being said,
it's almost like they're trying to protect him a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's true. And, given he's not in his sophomore year. Last year wasn't his freshman year.
Junior. This is last year.
Yeah. So, I really don't see the point why you wouldn't, if he's.
No, I lied. He is a sophomore. He was a freshman last year. Damn. Yeah. No, he's got to be a redshirt sophomore. There's no way.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, he's a redshirt sophomore. He played 2021, 2022, 2023.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, the COVID year ended up benefiting him in that regard. But still, the kid's almost fully developed. Use him while you have him. Talent like this doesn't come around every year. So, I'd like to see them use him in ways that I know he can be used. And with that being said, PJ Fleck's a great coach. I just think you're severely outmatched in this one. It's going to be hard to keep up with the punches, especially with everything UNC has on offense. And UNC can really improve on the defensive side of the ball. And I think they need to show that.
What are you taking?
I don't know. What'd you say the line was at right now?
7.5 UNC.
I'll probably take UNC 7.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it too, but I'm still gonna stay with my gut. I still think it's gonna be a closer game than we expected. I think a lot of people think UNC is gonna go out there and blow them out. I just think that Minnesota's offense is not great, but their O-line ain't South Carolina's O-line. This is a Big Ten O-line. Like, this is very solid, very well coached, big boys from the Midwest.
Yeah, I agree.
Our next game, this game is going to not be fun to watch, in my opinion. We have number 8 Washington going to Michigan State. Michigan State doesn't even really have a coach right now or quarterback. Mel Tucker is going in that weird non-paid suspension for sexual harassment / hazing. I haven't really looked into it, but I've heard it's not good at all. Whatever it is. This game's on Peacock because that's what the Big Ten does for their network now, which is brilliant. At 5 o'clock, another weird thing. Michael Penix Jr., 50 for Washington, 57 for 78, 859 yards with 8 touchdowns and a pick. He is just playing at video game level. Washington comes in at a minus 16.5. The over-under is 56. I think I'm going to honestly take Washington minus 16.5. I think they're going to destroy Michigan State. This Michigan State team is doo-doo. I mean, they beat Central Michigan 31-7, but I think it was like 14-7.5. I'm pulling it up just to make sure I don't sound like a dumbass. It was 10-7 Michigan State going into halftime. So they obviously can't put points up, and you're playing one of the best defenses, and in my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks one of the best offenses and one of the best quarterbacks in college football. The only shot Michigan State has at winning this game is to go score for score with them, and they can't. They can't. They're going to try to slow it down and like play Big Ten football, and Michael Penix is going to score in 3 plays, and they're going to be like, shit, what do we do now? I think Washington is going to destroy them.
Yeah, I agree. And let's just look at this from the standpoint of Michael Penix Jr. Look, I know some recent articles have been released about him talking about the struggles he went through in his life early to last season when he dealt with that injury. You know, there would be times when after every player would leave the locker room, he would literally lay on the ground and just cry because he didn't know if he was going to be able to do this anymore. And he didn't know if he wanted to do it anymore. But, you know, we're always going to be rooting for a guy like that, especially because he's a Tampa boy. We're always going to root for him. But let's just look at his personal success against Michigan State. When he played for Indiana, this man completed 20 straight passes and set an FBS record. In his 3 games he played against Michigan State the past 3 years, he's 82 of 120 for 1,003 yards. He's literally born to shred Michigan State to absolute pieces. And I think it's going to be no different. Last year when he played
Alex Banana to Michigan State.
Literally. Last year when they played the Spartans, he won 39-28. In his first game ever against Michigan State, he completed the program record 20 straight completions. And this year, he's leading the #1 ranked offense in all of football, averaging 434 yards of total offense. The dude is a baller. He's a stud. Any superlative you want to add to this kid's name going into this game, it is 100% stood by. And he will prove it in this game. He's one of the top quarterbacks in FBS right now. He's one of the top Heisman leaders right now. I know it's early in the season, but hey, we got to start somewhere, and he's towards the top of my list. And look, with all the things that are going on with Michigan State right now, there is like a lot of question marks. And I didn't realize this, but did you know if Mel Tucker's fired, every single player on Michigan State's roster has a 30-day window to transfer with no penalty?
Yes, but they're not eligible to the next season. It considers a redshirt this year.
That's fine.
No, I agree. I know it's still sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought when I first read it, I thought they could just like go hop on to another team and play.
Yeah.
I thought that would be super sick. But yeah, if he's fired. But do you know exactly what happened? I don't know.
Yes.
I heard it's very not good.
So after allegations went public that he sexually harassed a rape survivor during a phone call last year.
What are the details on that? Like he knew the girl, or like this is what I know. This is all I know. All I know is he's suspended without pay, most likely going to be fired. And he stated that it's all false and that he had a very adult relationship with the woman and it was all consensual.
Here's what I'm reading from the Associated Press. Michigan State suspended football coach Mel Tucker without pay on Sunday, less than 24 hours after allegations became public in a USA Today report. So let's open up that report and see what they said. 2 years ago, one of the nation's star college football coaches. So this man literally teamed up with the rape survivor to fight the culture of sexual violence. So he teams up with her, and then there's no way. Hold on.
So it's starting off good. He's trying to help fight this.
Yes. And then over 8 months, they developed a professional relationship centered on her advocacy work. Tucker invited Tracy to campus 3 times, twice to speak to his players and staff, once to get recognized as an honorary captain at the team's spring football game. But the relationship was upended during a phone call on April 28th, 2022. Tracy says in a complaint she filed with University Texas Title IX office in December that remains under investigation. According to the complaint, Tracy sat frozen for several minutes while Tucker made sexual comments about her and masturbated. His violation said she reopened 25-year-old wounds from her rape by 4 men, 2 Oregon State University football players, a junior college player, and a high school recruit. The idea that someone could know me and say they understand my trauma, but then re-inflict that trauma on me is so disgusting to me. It's hard for me to even wrap my mind around it. It's like he sought me out just to betray me. Yeah, this dude is fucked.
Oh my gosh, that's bad.
Pardon my French. There is no way this man should not be fired like now. Like I understand the due process. I understand you want to make sure all the facts are laid out on the table. But this ain't looking good whatsoever. I mean, this terrible.
Speaking on Mel Tucker outside of that horrific scene, which first of all, we do not condone that shit. Clocks in the stove, very fuck him for that. I don't understand the Mel Tucker hype in the first place. He had 1 year where Kenneth Walker literally carried their team. And then they signed him to like a $92 million contract for nothing. He didn't even prove himself. He did 1 year. And then he has done what? He didn't even go to a bowl game last year. And they suck this year.
This man let Keon Coleman walk to the portal.
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand the Mel Tucker hype. And honestly, ever since Mark D'Antonio left, they've kind of been in some shambles. But I hope all that gets figured out. Damn, that sucks. That's a really, really fucked up. Anyways, Washington's going to go on there and butt fuck them. So moving on from that, I have a hot take, and I'm going to drop it right now. We have number 11 Tennessee going to the Swamp to play the Florida Gators on ESPN at 7 p.m. Tennessee comes in at a -6, and my hot take is I'm taking the Florida Gators +6. Yes, I sound insane. Listen, the last time Graham Mertz and Joe Milton played, Joe Milton was the quarterback for Michigan, and Graham Mertz was the quarterback for Wisconsin, and Wisconsin went out there and destroyed them. Yes, that is no correlation to this. That's just a fun fact. But these two teams have a history of upsetting each other in big games. We've seen it with over and over and over again in the past. This Tennessee, listen, Florida sucks. I'm not saying Florida's good. I'm saying that this Tennessee team sucks. They beat Austin Peay 30-13, and they were up 13-6 at halftime. And then they ended up beating Virginia 49-13. That game was also 21-3 at halftime over one of the worst FBS teams in college football in Virginia. They started off slow. Their whole thing is we have a high-powered offense. It ain't been high-powered. Also, they're going to the Swamp in a very, very, very big rivalry game between Tennessee and Florida. At night, at UF, these people, the fans are going to be electric. The team's going to be electric. It's going to be a boring-ass game, and I think maybe a weird turnover or something. Florida's going to edge it out. I'm taking Florida +6. I just think that it's too much like Tennessee has it. It's a trap game. I really do think so, and I don't think Tennessee is the same Tennessee as last year, and everyone's gassing them up. And it'd be very fucking Florida Gators of them to be an average team and get 1 or 2 crazy upset wins.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of those things where both these teams have kind of been off to slow starts. You look at Florida's last game, they were able to put some points up on the board against McNeese State, but they didn't even outscore the team that McNeese State played the game before, who put up 52 on them. And I believe that was, Tarleton State. So Tarleton State put up more points than the Florida Gators did on McNeese State. And look, I think the biggest issue right now that we have with Florida is their rushing attack is just non-existent. And I feel like a big part of that falls on Graham Mertz. Look, if you can't alleviate some of the pressure with your arm off your running back, of course teams are going to stack the box and force you to beat them through the air because they simply just don't respect you. And why would they have a reason to? You really haven't shown anything. I know Billy Napier's trying to game plan some things, trying to get the ball into his playmakers' hands. But at the same time, you got to take shots at all parts of the field. if you're living behind the line of scrimmage, we saw what happened with Willie Taggart. That doesn't work. It's not going to win you games in the long run. And look, Florida and Tennessee both play in the SEC. Talent is bountiful. You're constantly going to get guys that sign your school. You have guys on your roster that can play. When is Florida going to actually take a shot on their backup? And how bad is their backup actually if he can't even beat Graham Mertz in practice? Like maybe Billy Napier is like, you really don't want to see this because it could get a lot worse than it actually is. But look, we talked about Tennessee and their slow starts, but one of the things that I think helps Tennessee a lot is they do play a very up-tempo offense. And Billy Napier likes to substitute guys out on defense. And I don't think Tennessee is going to allow for that to happen if Milton's able to get the ball rolling for them on offense. Look, they can't afford to have a slow start. Excuse me. They can't afford to have a slow start against this Florida team. Because look, sooner or later, you keep having slow starts, you're going to give Florida the ball with reasonable field position, and they only need to put like 1 or 2 first downs together before they're putting points on the board. And that's not going to help you. Look, I can't remember the last time that Tennessee has beaten Florida in Florida. I believe the game's in Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
Tennessee has lost the last 9 in a row in the Swamp.
Yeah, and multiple of those games have come in like heartbreaking fashion. I mean, we're talking about
the game. We're talking like Hail Marys type shit.
Will Grier to Antonio Callaway and Felipe Franks to Tyree Cleveland.
Yeah.
We're talking like SportsCenter top 10. Like every time you look up best moments of the season, like those plays are in there. Like I'm talking
a good fucking game.
Gut wrenchers. And this is one of those games where, one of the biggest reasons I love college football is history matters. Like, I don't care how far you are removed. When you play a rival or a team that you have their number, I don't care what the rosters look like. It's just different. The fans remember
it. It's in your head, regardless if you want to think about it or not. It's in your fucking head.
Yeah, and it messes with you. Like, I don't care how much you practice for it. I don't care how much you train for it. When you step foot on that field, something is different in the environment. So, look, I don't know if Florida's going to have some come to Jesus awakening. I don't know if Tim Tebow is going to possess Graham Mertz with the number 15. I don't know if the 15 powers haven't been transferred yet. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not expecting anything. But I agree with you. I would not be surprised if Florida does somehow end up covering. But then again, Tennessee this could be Joe Milton's breakout game. We don't know.
They could also beat him by like 50.
Yeah, Joe Milton could come out and throw like 800-yard bombs, and we would be like, oh my God, this is the most like insane thing I've ever seen in my life. But regardless, it's going to be entertaining. It's in the Swamp. It's one of the loudest football environments in college football. It's going to be must-watch TV regardless of what the score is.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great fucking game. I'm still rocking with Florida. And 2 things I want to point out. One, Tennessee has in the last 9 at the Swamp have not won. That is going to weigh in your head. As someone that went to Jesuit, those Tampa Catholic boys remember like, oh, the streak. Like you said, regardless of if it's another generation, that shit's in your head. That is a real fucking factor. The other thing is the star center, the star center for Florida comes back this game. Kingsley Iguakun. I'm sorry, I don't know if I mispronounced that. And ETN, I mean, he started 26 games at center the last 2 seasons, and ETN actually calls him the field general when it comes to the offense. That's going to also be a big factor in helping, 1, keep Mertz safe, and 2, establish that running game that you said was lackluster. They had 13 rushing yards versus Utah. That's dog shit. But 13. I'm telling you, there's something in the air. There's something in that Gainesville swampy shithole area that they're going to win this game. I'm telling you, even if they don't, it's going to be a good game. These 2 teams have too much history.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about this game is 2 good things can't happen for Florida fans. So, Matt, if UF wins, just know you are losing in fantasy. Like these are there is
one or the other, brother.
Yeah, it's one or the other. You have a door. You have 2 doors in front of you. It's Florida success for a game, or you win in fantasy, and both cannot be true at the same time. So, unfortunately, that's what you're stuck with, and that's the fate of your life. But that's what you get for being a Florida fan.
We got one more game, and honestly, we don't even really got to dive into it. We just have to talk about it because it's college game day. With Colorado State traveling to Colorado. This game is going to be at 10 o'clock on ESPN, number 18 Colorado. 10 o'clock because it's a West Coast game. Therefore, it'll be like 7 o'clock there. The line is over under 61. Colorado's coming in at a minus 23. If you don't remember, Colorado State's head coach, Jay Norvell, used to be the old Nevada coach. brought all of his Nevada guys over, and has not done shit since he's been there. They're 0-1 on the year. I couldn't even tell you the last time they won a game. They're terrible. And he goes out there. I don't know if you saw this, and he started bashing Dion today, or maybe it was yesterday, talking about how he's unprofessional and he cares more about ESPN. He's talking to his guys like, yeah, it's cool knowing that we're going to be on Sports Center, and it's cool knowing we're College Game Day and all this. He goes, but my mom taught me when you talk to other grown-ups, because I'm a grown-up, you take your hat and glasses off. So, like, first of all, I'm taking Colorado minus 23. They're going to beat them by 100. And I've been reading memes that are like, Dion's about to come out with like a huge pair of glasses and a giant hat for media day just to piss that guy off. I understand the guy's point of view. He's getting free media. Like, even though it's bad media, he's getting exposure on his program. They're going to get routed. And let's be honest, college football, ESPN, College Game Day, sports entities want Colorado to route them. Like, this is a toss-up. Here's a College Game Day to explode your program, Dion. Boom. You know, that's exactly what it is. This isn't a competitive game. Both teams know it's not a competitive game. Everyone, my mom right here knows it's not a competitive game. She doesn't even know the teams. She knows it's not a competitive game. Colorado's going to go out there and route them. We're going to keep the Shedeur Sanders hype going. We're going to keep the Travis Hunter hype going. And I believe Colorado's next game is a legitimate test. Yeah, so they have this game. Then they're at Oregon, which is where they kind of start their like trail of hard games. They're going to blow them out of the water. Calling this a rivalry game makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, Colorado had one win last year. You know who was against?
Colorado State.
I think the Buffs are a little better this year, just a little bit better. And, you know, Dion came out this week and he said, we want to exceed expectations, which is code word for I'm going to let Shedeur air that shit out for 450 and 5.
Travis down there somewhere.
Yeah, no, he's literally going to make sure his son is number one on all the Heisman polls. He's going to be like, this is the game where we put people on the map. He's like, this is one of those games where you stat pad the shit out of your entire team. So where you just look that much better at the end of the year. And I got no problem with it. Treat this like a massacre. This is your tune-up game. And look, Colorado State even came out and said, last time that we played in Colorado, we won 23-17. Well, that was back in 2009. That was a long time ago. We
were in 5th grade.
yeah. I don't even know who the players were.
No, they were solid then, because that's when they had Jim McElwain, and then he went to UF after that. They were decent.
Yeah. This quote was funny. He said, "It's just tremendous getting this opportunity and allowing the nation to see that we are more than capable of doing a sufficient and a great job." Which pretty much means that everything we've done wrong in past games, we're gonna make look like they never happened this game. And honestly, I feel like what ESPN is doing is kind of smart. You know, they continuously put the lines close enough to where people are like, oh, I guess Colorado isn't that good. And then when they blow the spread out of the water, they're like, oh my God, Colorado's a top 5 team in the country.
Yeah, they're doing it on purpose. They're 100% doing it on purpose.
Yeah, dude, I see videos like it'll be like game highlights and people will react to them like, dude, I want to see Florida State play Colorado. And I'm like, all right.
Slow your roll, buddy.
Slow your roll. I'm not saying they can't get there. Don't want to talk bad about anyone, but it's not going to be close. Yeah. Regardless, I think what Dion is doing, look, he proved me wrong. If we went back to our week 1, I talked about how it's going to take time and Dion isn't going to have them boys there yet, when quite obviously they may be there right now for all we know. Like, they're playing at a top level. They have athletes all across the board. They're playing quality football. I could give 2 shits what Colorado State has to bring to the table. You are just the sacrificial lamb for my personal enjoyment. And this is a 10 p.m. game, so they're literally going to treat you like dessert and wipe the floor with you.
Oh, and it's so smart business-wise to make them at 10 p.m. because they're going to have so many more views. Because they're going to put this earlier. Florida, Tennessee is going to get more views. The South has more football fans. Putting it at 10, everyone's going to be watching this game. You know what I mean? So they're going to kill them. The one thing I want to bring up too real quick before we move on, because this is the last game. We talk about how Colorado has athletes. We knew that was going to happen. The thing that impresses me the most is their O-line and D-line. That's where we thought they would struggle the most. That's where we knew they had the athletes. Dion brought his Louis bags with him. He talked about that. He brought his luxury, but it's the fact that their O line and D line look so good. I mean, is their O line D line great? I mean, they're not spectacular, but they're good enough to let their athletes get open and make the plays they need to make, and that's all they need. That's all they need. They don't need to be spectacular. And you look at it against Nebraska. Yeah, I understand Nebraska is not a phenomenal team, but they're extremely well coached with Matt Rule, and they got big boys. Like that is Big Ten football, is the trenches, and they played fine. So there's not a single way in the world I could see Colorado State doing anything. There's just not.
I will add this because I did see this. So the Rams, Colorado State, have dropped 23 straight games to teams in the AP Top 25. Their last AP Top 25 win, August 31st, 2002, against number 7 Colorado.
Add a little.
History's doomed to repeat itself. Yeah, this is like if you gave Hitler the Infinity Stones. Like,
Yeah.
a lot different history going on.
Yeah, he's gonna fucking make something happen.
Yeah. All right, back from our little break. So we're done with our slate of college football games, but there is one more topic I want to address, and this has more so to do with the NFL, but it does in part roll into football overall, and that has to do with turf fields. So as you all probably know, Aaron Rodgers did sustain a Achilles tear on Monday Night Football against the Bills. Only played 75 seconds and 4 plays into the year before his season was abruptly injured. And look, I understand why turf fields became so popular because, look, the NFL is always about making money. It always has been. If you look at even the college level games now with how they've cut back pace of play just to fit in more advertising, the motivation is always money, and it always has been. No matter how you want to draw it up, players are getting paid more, coaches are getting paid more. Everyone is making more money because the product is just so good, and people are always going to be reaching in someone else's pocket. The huge addition to turf fields was the maintenance wasn't as much as an upkeep. It was easier to host other events outside of football without completely destroying the field. It just made a lot of sense from a business perspective to switch to turf because it was just there was a lot more money at stake.
There's aesthetic pleasing to it as well.
Yeah, it is very aesthetic. It looks better. But the problem is there is significant scientific research that backs this, but there has been such a huge growth in non-contact injuries thanks to turf fields. And the reason for that is turf just doesn't have a lot of give to it. It's really hard to, like, the field itself just doesn't allow your body.
Not real.
Yeah, it's not real. It's rubber. You're literally rubbing on rubber on top of concrete.
There's also been so many cases of kids overheating as well as cleats melting and other fatigued injuries due to the fact of the temperature. I mean, what that new team in New York, their field was 124 degrees.
Yeah.
That's just not safe. That's not real. That's not what you should be playing on.
Yeah. And, the excuses have kind of been worn out for why teams don't have grass fields anymore. One of the best examples that I want to look at too, and if you haven't seen this, I highly recommend you go watch it. Real Madrid's soccer field is full grass, but it's fully retractable. So after games, the field literally opens up and the field goes underground where it has full UV lights. It's in a full greenhouse. It's properly moistured and lighting to keep it pristine year round. And guess what? The stuff that comes out over top of it, they're covered. They can still host events on top of that. And it was only, like I say only, but it was a $270 million renovation. But every team in the NFL can afford that.
They all have that. They all have that money. The NFL
have that money.
Yeah.
And another thing about soccer, and we call it soccer because we're Americans, that's just what we do. But when you look at soccer, there are literally the top athletes in the world at soccer that have written in their contracts that they will not play on turf fields because it is too much of a risk on their body. We're talking about people that run around miles for 90 minutes and they will not step foot on these fields because they know that it could completely ruin their lives from non-contact injuries. But yet we play one of the most physically demanding sports in the world in football, and we just think that it's going to be all fine and dandy. And look, I'm not saying the NFL is always making steps in the wrong direction. I know we have tried to improve and are making improvements on the concussion side of things, and we're trying to fix, player health, player overall health, things like that. But why are we still cutting corners when it comes to stuff like this? Like, I don't get it. By now, teams need to start making the move back to grass fields. I think the switch in the first place was way too fast. I think every team kind of just adopted it out the gate just because they were like, oh, more money, easy fix. No reason to even think twice about it. But now that the data has kind of expressed itself, there's no reason to keep using it. It's done nothing but proven to be issues. I know it's easier to maintain through bad weather, but then when bad weather does happen, you can't even have guys stay on their feet. You know, you look at this last Super Bowl, how many players could you count that slipped and fell during the middle of plays? That unacceptable. Or you have to stop the game, like the Ohio State Georgia game. Had to stop the game because like part of the end zone came undone and they had to have a whole field crew come out and like shovel rubber pellets underneath. Like they were just, oh my God, we gotta make sure this is all level.
The back ice broke.
Yeah, back ice broke. Like your field's completely like destroyed after like one minor inconvenience. Like, but it's too much money if our players run little shuttle drills and our cleats tear up the grass. Like, I don't really understand that, but that's just me. I hope to see everyone move the switch back to grass. I like to see when it gets rain, you have your mud games. You get a little muddy, a little slip and slide.
That's football, brother.
That's football right there. That's football. But regardless, that wraps up our news in terms of collegiate sports, collegiate football, I should say, and our NFL news in that one little segment. So moving on, we have our last segment of the day, and that will be our draft. Now, I've been thinking about this for a while. I know this may be a copy to another podcast that I'm not going to say out loud. Just kidding. I believe they did this on Pardon My Take. But it's such a good idea, and there were so many left off the board that I feel like we need to discuss it. So our draft topic today is, if you died and you got to see stats of your entire life, what stats would you want to see? I think there's a lot of interesting stats throughout my life that I would like to know once my time is said and done. There's still stats I'm piling on. You could say I'm a stat pattern in a sense for a lot of things. So I would like to know, Grayson, what are some things you would like to see some stats of when it's all said and done?
You wanna start us off with this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it a little timid for round one. You know, I may get a little wild towards the later ones, but my number one is gonna be amount of food consumed in pounds. I want to know throughout my entire life how much food I've eaten in my entire life. And you know, we could break it down in like the macros and stuff like that. I want to see like how much sugar I've had in my life. I want to know the carbs. I want to know the protein. You know, I want to know where I rank amongst my food consumption.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that, and I'm gonna go with amount of alcohol I've consumed in volume. I would also like to see a chart that breaks it down by which kind of alcohol. Which one got me drunk the most, which one didn't get me the most drunk, which one was more leisure. I'd like to see my alcohol consumption breakdown.
Interesting. My number two is, and we're just going to jump right into it because I think this is probably my most needed one, is amount of girls I could have gotten in life.
Yes. That you didn't know if you had the shot with, but you really
Yeah, and I need specific names. Like if I see a name on there where it's like, yeah, you totally could have got with this girl, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I sold.
Yeah.
Like I sold so hard. And there's probably a lot. There's probably honestly a lot just because I was, a little bit of a pussy, not willing to take the deep shots per se. So, I feel like there's a lot left to be desired on that stat. I feel like that's gonna be one that breaks my heart, but it's a reality check. I need that. I need to see that. So yeah, what do we label that as? Just girls
I could have gotten with.
Yeah, girls I could have gotten with. Is a good
for my number two, I'm gonna go with total amount of money made. I don't want to look at like, I made $100 by to pay a $50 bill. No, just straight up how much money was I like made throughout my life, whether it was like coaching or job, or even if it was like birthday gifts. I want to know how much money, if you put it from the second I was born to the second I died, total income I brought in together combined.
Okay. Total amount of money made. I like that. I like that. You know, try to see where your guap's at.
Yeah.
At the
Get your
of
money. I'm not your funny. Have you heard?
yeah. We may have to cut that. Anyway,
You never
number
seen that video?
yes, I've seen it. It was just the imitation of the growl just was so miss. Like if that was baseball, you definitely swung and missed at that, unfortunately. Um my number three would be um how many lives I impacted in a positive way.
I was thinking of something like that too. Yeah, I was thinking of something
Yeah,
like that.
something sentimental, you know, time to turn it around. I would like to know, you know, whether I made someone smile, whether I was a positive impact, and whether it be a kid passing by just based off something I did for someone else. Just how many people throughout my life did I impact in a positive light? I would like to know.
I was gonna say I'm not gonna use this because it's too similar, but I was gonna say how many people considered me their friend. That's what I
Mm,
was
that's
gonna
a
say. Yeah,
that
it's kind of like the same thing, so I won't use it, but that's what I was thinking. Like how many people out there? Because there's definitely people out there that like you're cool with, but you wouldn't really be like they're my friend, or you don't even really know them that well, but they look at you as their friend, you know. I'm not. I didn't mean to come off that in like a cocky way. I meant it in like more of an endearing way. Um, the other, oh damn, I just had one. I lost it. This is number four, right?
you're on three.
No, I did three.
Amount of alcohol consumed and total money made.
Oh, I thought I did a different one for my first one. I want to know how many balls I've ever thrown. How many times I've thrown a football or a baseball or even shot at a basketball. The amount of attempts for a pass attempts.
Yeah, the amount of total balls thrown.
Yes.
Pause. In a lifetime. Yeah, you get those numbers up, buddy. Um, my number four is interesting. I want to know the total amount of people in the world I could be in hand-to-hand combat.
That's a good one. That's
Like
good.
if you were to just line me up against every human being, just in a one-on-one environment, just empty room, how many could I take? I feel like it would be a very humbling experience, but at the same time, I'd be like,
I think your number would be higher than you think. I
yeah,
really do. Because like in America, probably not because we're the steroid use of the world. But if
yeah,
you go to like some European countries and some Asian countries, they're all tiny and scrawny. Like you know, that's why I think you do pretty well. My number four, I want to know the amount of time total I've done driving.
ooh,
The amount of total time I've had either driving or in a car in general, just like transporting.
yeah. So amount of total time driving slash spent in car.
Yes.
That is a good one. Um, ooh,
We're on the last one now, right?
yeah, fifth and final round. These are the championship rounds. These are where you got to make a count. I'm trying to think of just a banger to end off on. Um, hmm.
Oh, I got a good one, kind of. I mean, it's kind of similar to him, but I'm gonna rock with it regardless.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. My fifth one, kind of similar to yours. I want to go though. How much total time I spent sleeping?
Oh,
What?
see, I was thinking on the toilet.
Damn. Toilet. That's a good one. But yeah, I'm gonna go with total time spent sleeping. You whether it be naps, whether it be quick, just resting my eyes, whatever you want to call it. Just the amount of time in my life that I spent as a koala, just wasting away.
I think it's 1/3 of your life or something like that.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's so sad. I'm gonna go with the amount of times I put a smile on someone's face.
Yeah, yeah.
The amount of times I did something and someone was like, "That was awesome," or like, "That was cool."
Amount of times I've made someone smile. All right, honorable mention now because we don't have to be so sentimental. I definitely want to know how much cum I've released in my entire life.
Oh my gosh, we're done. We're done. We're done. That's
uh,
the bond. That's the bond.
specifically, I want to know in liters. I just want to know in liters. Could I fill a swimming pool? maybe,
Oh my gosh.
maybe. We may.
Definitely the amount of time on the toilet.
Ooh. How many swimming pools do you think you could have filled up with the amount of shits you've taken in your life?
How about piss?
What about both?
Like, are we combining or are we doing like one for piss and one for shit?
Interesting. Does the piss deteriorate the poo at all? Because if that's the case, then I definitely want it
That's a good
separate.
one. I have a good one. The amount of times I pissed my parents off.
Oh, I just piss people off in general. I want to know how many times that people have gone home and been like, man, fuck that kid. I want to kill that guy.
Gone home. I live with my parents, and they say,
Oh, that's a good one. How many murderers you've crossed in your life, or how many
"Oh,
like because they say you pass like a good amount of serial killers. I want to know how many.
yeah,
I want to know how many. I want to know how many weirdos I've passed in my life. Like
yeah." How
maybe not.
many? Not even like murderers, just like horrible people that you've met in your life.
Yeah, like child diddlers or something like that.
Something bad. Something bad.
Something
I
bad.
feel like there's a big one we're missing.
There probably is. There's probably a lot that we're missing.
Yeah.
Times we've just missed celebrities.
And I feel like that number wouldn't be as high as you think.
Yeah, that'd probably be like low 20s on the list. That might not even crack the top
Well,
25.
how many minutes? How many? No, I want to say minutes. Just total time I spent either just watching sports because that shit's got to be high.
Yeah.
In my youth, I would devote an entire Saturday from 9 a.m. until fucking 3 in the morning after the Pac-12 game, just straight up watching college football.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be solid. I'm trying to think of like one more. But we got some pretty solid ones.
Yeah, we got some good ones. We got some that we'll probably get canceled for too, though.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's about it. Maybe another stat I could find out is how much time I've spent dedicating my life to this podcast, because probably when it's all said and done, it's gonna be like a third of my life, give or take. But hey, we do it because we love to do it.
Third of our life dedicated to this podcast, resulting in getting 0 bitches.
Ain't that the truth? Sacrifices were made.
Sacrifices have been made. Clocks on the stove. College football week 3.
101.
101.